You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
We took it all. We brought them to our land. An endless night, ember hot and icy cold. The rage of the earth. We made this curse. Carved it in the blood on our backs. We did not see. We could not, but she did. And in the end...
What will I become?
Senua's Saga. Hellblade 2.
Play it now with Game Pass.
Say goodbye to your credit card rewards. Greedy corporate mega stores, led by Walmart and Target, are pushing for a law in Congress to take away your hard-earned cash back and travel points to line their pockets. The Durbin-Marshall credit card bill would enact harmful credit card routing mandates that would end credit card rewards as we know it. If you love your credit card rewards, tell your lawmakers, hands off my rewards. Tell them to oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill.
Recorded in Chicago, Illinois, with your hosts, Ken, Matt, Neal, and Jeff. This is Triviality.
Hello and welcome to Triviality, the game where a lack of seriousness meets a little bit of knowledge. My name is Neal, and this is part 2 of our special Oscars bonus tournament. You probably have listened to episode 1, so you already know the drill. So we will just be like what Oscars telecast should be like and keep everything moving. I want to introduce our very special guest host today. He is the host with the most, the Billy Crystal of Oscars Trivia Podcasting, and that is Ryan Meyers. How are you, Ryan?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Last episode, I said I was wearing a Tim Ford suit, but today you are in a tux and you look dashing.
Oh, well, thank you. I just got it pressed.
And I'm impressed. How did you feel the competitors did last game? It was a difficult game, but I thought we had some good outcomes.
Yeah, they were a lot of fun, which was my big takeaway from it. They did pretty well. The questions aren't, the most simple, and they were able to parse it out really well, I thought, for the most part.
I thought so too, and I agree with you. I think these questions aren't ones that you'll find on the back of grocery store trivia cards. They're a little bit more in-depth, and they cover all facets of the Oscars, which I think you would want in a all-Oscars episode.
That's the goal.
Well, thank you for being here, as always, but let's introduce our new competitors for part 2. Our first guest is coming to us from Concord, New Hampshire. It's his first appearance on the show, so thank you very much for being here and being a part of this, and that is Ben Savard. How are you, Ben?
I'm doing well, although I feel so bad saying this. I would be remiss if I didn't say it is pronounced Concord, New Hampshire.
What did I say? Concord?
Concord. I did write a 1-star review of Triviality years ago when it came up as a question, and somebody pronounced it Concord, but that has since been amended to a 5-star review.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is
well, thank you. I appreciate you doing that.
But yes, I'm doing well, and I'm very, very excited to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe your connection to the Oscars or what you love about it?
Sure. So I am a graduate student at the University of New Hampshire here in New Hampshire. I'm studying nonfiction writing. And my connection to the Oscars is just always having grown up in really enjoying watching the ceremonies and following along with the narratives. I think my strongest Oscars memory is being 12 years old and watching what was my favorite movie at the time, still up there, Lord of the Rings: Return of the King, do extremely well and take home Best Picture, and just feeling so inspired that great art, it's being recognized. This is just such a touching moment. Movies are cool, and I'm a lot older now, and I still believe that movies are cool. So live your dreams.
Yeah, that's the way it should be. And especially with this past year being so difficult, getting back into the theater will be nice because that's sort of my sanctuary. And on top of the Concord/Concord debate here, we're even now because I disparage Lord of the Rings all the time. So now we're even. So it'll be okay.
Perfect. And I apologize again for being a pedantic jerk.
That's okay. You've already had -5 points added to your score. Our next guest is coming to us from Austin. You may have heard her on episode 147, which has one of my favorite titles of all time on Triviality, and I'll let you look that one up because I think it's great. And that is Ann Barry. How are you, Ann?
Hi, I'm good. I'm glad to be back, this time as a contestant. I'm a little less nervous.
Well, you did a wonderful job on the game that you hosted, one of our favorites, so we thank you for that. And thank you for being here today. Why don't you remind listeners who you are and a little bit about yourself and your Oscars love?
Sure. So I am from New York and I now live in Austin, Texas. I was a math teacher for years, but I'm now a machine learning engineer, which I just push buttons on a computer and do things. And my real performance passion is I love musicals. I love Broadway. I miss Broadway. I bought tickets for the Broadway in Austin season that's coming up. So I get to see 7 shows, including Hamilton. With the Oscars, my first experience was the year Titanic was nominated. I was in 6th grade, so it was like right in my wheelhouse. My friend and I made a Titanic ship out of I think cardboard and Legos as sort of our idol to worship while watching the show. And there were Beanie Babies involved. And it was just oh my God, this is awesome. My favorite movie every year is going to win 1 million awards. And that's just not how it works. And so I really like Oscars trivia because it's got there's a time element, years, and then there's people. And I kind of mapping it all out, even when I haven't seen the movies. I've also not seen any single movie nominated for any award this year. So it'll be interesting.
It's been a rough year for everyone. I think I think a lot of people's Oscar lists are going to be missing a little bit just because, different award season, but a lot of deserving films. But yes, thank you very much for being here. And I'm happy to hear that Titanic did win and you didn't have to sink your own concoction, your own, design there. And our last contestant, you may have heard him hosting episode 189, coming to us from Pittsburgh, is David Fudor. How you doing, David?
Hey, Neal. Doing well. Thank you.
And why don't you just remind listeners a little bit about yourself and tell us a little bit about your Oscars love?
So I am from Pittsburgh. I have a wife, Leanne, daughter, Gwen, who's at volleyball practice right now. My son, Jacob, you just saw, he's going to be turning 10 next week. I've greatly enjoyed hosting twice this podcast. I think I have another episode coming out in a couple weeks, spoiler alert. And this is my first time playing, and I'm excited. Regarding Oscars, you were saying, what do you love about the Oscars? For me, it's the surprise wins, the times when the whole theater there is shocked and you get a surprise win. I was thinking about when Adrian Brody won or things like that, where it's just sort of out of nowhere and all the jaws sort of drop. I think you get less of that now because it seems like all the precursor awards there tends to be less surprises. But I do think that's sort of my favorite thing about the Oscars. And maybe in tonight's trivia game, we'll get some surprises as well, like maybe me doing well, but we'll see.
I mean, when I was talking about last episode, what my favorite Oscar moment was Parasite winning Best Picture, because I never thought in my lifetime we'd see a foreign production win the award. Well, non-British, I should say.
Yeah, it was a great moment, and any sort of surprise is always good. I feel like probably one of the most famous examples is Cuba Gooding Jr. winning and his long speech and jumping up and down and whatnot. So a lot of great opportunities for, I guess, quote unquote, Oscar moments. But all of our contestants are here. You've heard from them. We're super excited to have them here in game 2. And there's nothing really else left to do except throw it to Ryan, who is going to take it away and get things started.
Alrighty, folks, let's do this thing. Starting off with question number 1. During her speech for the Iron Lady, Meryl Streep thanked Roy Helland, especially in congratulations for his finally winning an Oscar that night. In what capacity has Helland been linked to Streep since 1982? All right, Anne, you can do some thinking aloud if you like.
So this one I'm guessing is a behind-the-scenes person because I don't recognize the name. I feel like I have a good handle on a lot of the acting Oscars. So I'm thinking it's something like makeup or costume. And because Iron Lady is a period piece, then I think I'm going to go with costume.
All right.
Like costume designer or something.
Yes, I'm not going to be super pedantic on a lot of these. Benjamin.
Let's test how pedantic you will be. If I were to say stylist, is that too vague?
I would be looking for something more specific.
Okay, well now I'm going to have to think about it a little bit and say hairstylist.
All right. And David?
My thought was hair and makeup, but now I'm wondering if that's two different things. So I will say I'm not sure. Do you need something? Is that too vague? I wasn't going the costume route. I was thinking it was more hair and makeup.
The correct answer is he won the Oscar that night for makeup and hairstyling. So makeup, hair, either of those is fine by me. He's been her personal hair and makeup person since 1982. So yeah, that's fine enough for me. Hair or makeup are your keywords there.
Ryan, what do we need to do to get him to work on All of Us full time?
We need to be the greatest actress of a generation. Should be easy.
Easy enough, yeah.
All right, question number 2. 1954's Three Coins in the Fountain from the film of the same name. 1957's All the Way from The Joker is Wild. And 1959's High Hopes from A Hole in the Head were all original song winners that share what commonality?
I think I can lock in.
I'll lock in.
Benjamin, you can do some talking aloud.
Well, it's time to vamp because I have no clue what the answer would be. Let's see. These are all from the 50s. This is all, songs. The Joker is Wild sounds like that could be card games and coins sometimes, betting. I don't know. I'm gonna. You know what? I will lock in with a vague answer that I'm gonna then get wrong when I try to be specific, and say that these all had the same composer.
The same composer. David, what's your guess?
This is a tough one. I'm just going out on a limb here and saying maybe they're all instrumentals.
All instrumentals. And Anne?
I'm just wondering if they're all waltzes.
All waltzes. The correct answer here, all 3 of those Best Original Song winners were performed by Frank Sinatra.
I was actually going to say that, but I thought that...
Did he sing, or were they just played on instruments?
So vague. It didn't have to do with the writer.
Oh yeah, he sang all of them. Yeah,
I'll take your word for it.
I know in A Hole in the Head he was in that one, and he sang it with a kid. The All the Way, I'm not sure because I haven't seen The Joker's Wild. And Three Coins, he just sang over the theme, over the credits. Let's go to number 3. Before getting into the scripted spiel of who the nominees were and who won, what actress said, "Thank you for having me back. Last year was the best night of my husband's life," to laughter before telling us that Joaquin Phoenix had won?
I can lock in.
Locked in?
I'm going to have to think this one
double
out.
lock in. Yeah, think it out.
All right. So, best night of my husband's career, best night of my husband's life. So if Joaquin Phoenix had won, that means that we're talking about the 2019 awards, and it's the Best Actress who will introduce this coming Best Actor. So this would have been the 2018 Best Actresses win, which I'm going to have to make sure I don't screw up my years. You know what? Yeah, I'm gonna lock in with Frances McDormand.
All right, and Anne?
Well, I think that Ben's answer is right, and mine is definitely wrong. Because I know that Joaquin Phoenix has been nominated multiple times. I thought maybe he had won earlier, and then my mind went to Sandra Bullock because I feel like she's like publicly said something bad about her ex-husband. So that's where I went, Sandra Bullock, and I'm pretty sure I'm wrong.
And David, your guess?
So I think I remember this speech. I think it's an actress who sort of had some risque lines in another movie. I think it's Olivia Colman.
It's just a sex joke. That whole line is. It is Olivia Colman from the second, as of this airs, most recent Academy Awards. She gave a very funny speech, and yeah, she's always quite the tonic at award shows. She's delightful. Olivia Colman for The Favorite is correct. And then I didn't preface this before the episode. When I do mention a year, like in blah, 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 X year, it's the year of the films that came out, not the year of the ceremony, because I will forever stand by the 2019 ceremony celebrates the best in 2019, not the year the ceremony happened. So just for clarification's sake. Let's move on to question number 4. What man holds the distinction of most Best Director nominations with 12, and also the distinction of having directed the most acting nominees with 36?
Lock in.
We got one lock?
Lock in.
Alrighty, little thinking aloud time.
All right, so I'm going to think about this one. 12 director nominations, and that's a lot of acting nominations. So you're going to want to have movies that have prolific casts. I'm going to hope it's someone recent. I'm going to lock in with Martin Scorsese.
Guess of Martin Scorsese. And Benjamin?
I believe that this is William, quote, "Don't call me Billy Wilder," Wyler. So William Wyler is my guess.
So I know that Spielberg has, I think, 12 Best Picture nominations. So maybe he also has 12 Best Director nominations. So Spielberg.
Someone will be getting points here. It is William Wyler, whose work from the late 30s into the mid 50s is absolutely unparalleled Oscar-wise. He won 3 Best Director Oscars during his time for Ben-Hur and The Best Years of Our Lives and Mrs. Miniver, just for some. But all of his movies had big casts, and they get like 4 nominations each. Mrs. Miniver got 5.
Yeah, he's one of the best around. Very underrated. A lot of people don't recognize his name, and as Ben sort of mentioned in his joke there, a lot of people I think confuse him with Billy Wilder. And Spielberg was a good guess, but I believe he only had 13 of his actors nominated for Oscars. Mm-hmm. Not a lot considering a lot of the movies of his that were nominated.
Yeah, Wyler doesn't get a lot of mentions because he was never really flashy. Like Billy Wilder usually had like really good scripts to punch things up. People like Spielberg had like a lot of visual style. Wyler did a lot of like adaptations from Broadway to film, but didn't make them super stagey. Laurence Olivier credits him with teaching him how to act on film instead of on stage because they did Wuthering Heights together in 1939.
And there's a great documentary, if you're a big fan of film and I guess a war buff. Steven Spielberg produced a documentary called Five Came Back, which was focusing on John Ford, William Wyler, John Huston, Frank Capra, and George Stevens, and sort of their contributions to the war and how they were part of the I guess, units of either filming during the war, during different battles, or helping create newsreels, films, things like that during the time period. It's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. I'd recommend it as well. Number 5. What 2 legendary Black performers were nominated for lead actress in 1972, both losing out to Liza Minnelli in Cabaret? One was nominated for a role that was also nominated this year, and the other was nominated for her heartbreaking work as a family matriarch.
Ryan and I were talking about this yesterday. Despite some very good performances by the answers, it's very hard to beat Liza Minnelli's performance in Cabaret.
Mm-hmm. The common thought in 72 was that if there's 2 Black women in the same category, they're going to cancel each other out more or less. But I think it's more just having to go up against somebody for what is, later going to be known as their iconic signature role. Is just, God, nobody could have beaten her that year.
Can I lock in with saying that I don't have an answer?
Sure, you can lock in.
Do we get half credit if you get 1?
I'm lock in with a total guess. So I'm considering me locked in.
Anne said lock in with no guess. David, what's your guess?
I'm guessing that one of them is Cicely Tyson, and the other one, I can't even think. I'm going to lock in with Diana Ross, but that's wrong. But I'm hoping I went 1 for 2.
David, I think you're probably right about Diana Ross, because I'm pretty sure the role that's nominated this year and in 72 is Billie Holiday, which would have been, I'm pretty sure, Lady Sings the Blues back in 72. I have no idea who the other one is, so I'm going to go with another incredible touchdown of an actress and say Ruby Dee.
Ruby D is so lovely. The correct answers are for Lady Sings the Blues playing Billie Holiday is Diana Ross, and for playing the mother in Sounder was Cicely Tyson.
Oh.
Well done, David.
I thought Diana Ross was like, I just remember The Wiz.
Very good, Paul. We are 5 questions through, which is not a whole lot. We still got 10 left. Neal, do you want to give a quick score update?
Of course. Anne has had some very good answers. She almost got points on the Meryl Streep question, but currently she's sitting at 0, but the scores aren't too high and out of reach because Ben is currently in second place with 2 points, and David currently in the lead with 3.
We took it all. We brought them to our land. An endless night, ember hot and icy cold. The rage of the earth. We made this curse. Carved it in the blood on our backs. We did not see. We could not, but she did. And in the end...
What will I become? Senua's Saga. Hellblade 2.
Play it now with Game Pass.
Say goodbye to your credit card rewards. Greedy corporate mega stores, led by Walmart and Target, are pushing for a law in Congress to take away your hard-earned cash back and travel points to line their pockets. The Durbin-Marshall credit card bill would enact harmful credit card routing mandates that would end credit card rewards as we know it. If you love your credit card rewards, tell your lawmakers, hands off my rewards. Tell them to oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill.
Alrighty. That takes us to the second part of the quiz, question number 6. After what Danish-American man is the Academy's Humanitarian Award named? He was the head of the Motion Picture Relief Fund for nearly 2 decades.
Locked in.
I'll lock in.
A little thinking out loud time.
Yeah, all right. Let's time once again fill the air with my nonsense ramblings as I try to think about an answer that I have absolutely no idea. Every name I'm thinking of that sounds vaguely Nordic, I'm pretty sure is just from the Netherlands. So hopefully this would be a good time for somebody to make a little Dutch boy joke, but I don't have the capacity.
He wasn't invited to the Oscars this year, unfortunately.
Oh.
Well, they're not doing it remote. Steven Soderbergh, who's producing it, is like, nah, you got to be there in person. So he couldn't make the flight. Yeah, I'm going to lock in with a name that sounds vaguely Danish and say Mads Mikkelsen.
I love that answer. David.
This is one where I'm hoping Ryan will not make me do the full name because I think the guy's last name is like Herschel or Herschelt, but I don't know the first name and I don't know the full name of the award, but I'm going to say Herschelt or something like that.
Alrighty. And Anne.
So I was really hoping that the Humanitarian Award has been since named for Paul Newman. I think he got it one time. And I'm also hoping that maybe on his mother's side, he's got some really long Danish name.
The correct answer here is Jean Herschelt. It's going this year to Tyler Perry for all his humanitarian work in the Atlanta film scene, and to, oh God, I want to say it's just like whatever the Oscar Benefits Charity Association is. All right.
Great poll.
Thanks.
Number 7. This is my favorite question. 1984 is kind of a running joke for Oscar fans because 60% of the Best Actress nominees that year were basically just the same role in the same film. Sissy Spacek, Jessica Lange, and the winner Sally Field all played women trying to accomplish what stereotypical American story arc?
Well, I guess I'm the last one. So yeah, I'll lock in and say taking care of a family alone. So like single motherhood, I guess, if that counts as enough of an arc.
And Anne?
So that definitely crossed my mind because the only thing I know about this is that the Sally Field won for Places in the Heart or something like that, which does sound kind of like that. But also it's the 80s, so I was thinking it's women trying to make their way through a man's world in the workplace and kicking butt.
And David.
I'm sort of going to combine Anne and Ben's answers because the only one that I knew of the three was Sally Field for Places in the Heart. And I thought that was a movie about single motherhood. So that was my guess, was being a single mother as well.
The correct answer here, the Sissy Spacek film was The River, Jessica Lange was Country, and Sally Field was Places in the Heart. And the plot of all three of those films is a woman has to save the farm.
Do they have husbands?
No joke, they're all about saving the farm. I know Sally Field's character was a widow in one. Yeah, I just looking at that, it's just hysterical to me that
I feel like saving the farm is definitely navigating. That is a workplace, and that is a man's world, as according to our stereotypes.
I know that the Jessica Lange film, it's her and her husband having to save the farm from foreclosure. I'm trying to remember who plays her husband. I think it's Sam Shepard.
Yeah.
And if it's not, then that's really good casting from me.
Is there like a montage of her like not being able to like, I don't know, like stick pitchforks and things, but then she becomes strong because then she's making it in the man's world?
Oh, isn't her husband Mel Gibson?
In what, Country?
In The River?
Oh, I was talking about The Country. In The River, that's the Sissy Spacek film. I think so. That sounds right to me.
Oh, you were saying
he's
Jessica
really
Lange,
young.
my bad.
Jessica Lange was Country, and that one was Sam Shepard. Number 8, what co-founder of the Dogma 95 film movement coming out of mid-90s Denmark was recognized by the director's branch this year for his film Another Round?
Locked in.
I'll lock in.
And your turn to think aloud.
Oh, boy. I actually do know things about the Oscars. I just don't know these things. I have literally no clue. I'm probably going to recognize the name because I feel like I have heard of a Danish director, but I can't come up with anything.
Okay, over to David.
This is another one where I think I know the last name, but not the first name. I think his last name is Vinterberg.
And Benjamin.
Once again, I will lean hard into my Mads Mikkelsen fandom and try to pronounce it with a Danish accent and say this is Thomas Vinterberg.
Oh, that's much better than my pronunciation.
And as a filthy American, Thomas Vinterberg is correct. Another Round is delightful. If you have a Hulu subscription, you can watch it for free. It's about 4 school teachers who read some paper that says humans operate best at a low but steady blood alcohol content. So they just get like 0.05 drunk all through the day, stop drinking at like 4 o'clock. It's very funny. And it's also probably going to win international feature.
And if you want to laugh, look up Mads Mikkelsen talking about Rihanna and the music video he was in. I won't tell you the details, but his interview is very entertaining.
It is. Number 9. Meryl Streep has been the most nominated actor of each of the last 4 decades. The last time she wasn't top dog of a 10-year span was in the 70s, when what man earned 5 acting nominations that decade?
Locked in.
I'll lock in.
All right, Anne's locked in. All righty. You're
Well,
up.
it's back to me to say stuff out loud as I think about this. Well, I know Nicholson won in 75, so it's at least one. That seemed like it was a good decade for him. So I feel like his first nomination was in like 69. That was really his kind of hitting his stride. But I know his only other wins are in the 80s and 90s. So maybe not. It's like maybe slightly too late for Peter O'Toole. I know he had like a million nominations and never won. Maybe some of those are in the 70s. I don't know. I feel like you can never go wrong with guessing Jack Nicholson, so I'm going to lock in with Jack Nicholson.
Locking with the Jack. David, what are you thinking?
I went with someone. I tried to think, the Godfather actors would have had 2 off the top, so that was sort of where I went. I'm going to say Al Pacino.
And Anne?
Yeah, I landed in the same spot, Al Pacino, because obviously The Godfather, and I feel like he had kind of like a tight run of nominations at some point, in addition to The Godfather.
That is a good inclination. Al Pacino is the correct answer. He was nominated for supporting actor for The Godfather, and then lead actor for Serpico, and then he was nominated for Godfather 2, and then he was nominated for Dog Day Afternoon. That was all 4 years in a row. And at the very end of the decade, you get Injustice for All. And do you know what most super commonly parodied line originated in Injustice for All?
This whole court's out of order.
Yeah.
Abso-freaking-lutely. This whole court's out of order.
How did I not know? Oh.
No, I think Nicholson had to have 4 nominations. Because Nicholson had 5 Easy Pieces in 70, Last Detail 73, Chinatown 74, and Cuckoo's Nest 75. All right, that was number 9. Let's go to number 10. After failing to win for Malcolm X and Amistad, who became the first black person to win the costume design Oscar when she set the fashion aesthetic for the entirety of Wakanda?
Locked in.
I'll just lock in. Mainly because I don't want to talk about this one.
That's fair. Anne, you get to think aloud.
Yeah,
Sorry, Anne.
Awesome. So it's okay. This person's got to be older. And fashion is not a huge thing for me outside of like Goodwill. So I just have no clue. So that's it.
I will say for the record, more nominees should be wearing Goodwill at the awards just to, give a nice message to everyone who can actually, afford what they wear.
Well, the Jean Herschel Humanitarian Award is only awarded to those with Goodwill. That's Goodwill. You know how to thrift. David, what are you thinking?
Well, Neal said this wasn't going to be a quiz that had grocery store trivia cards, but that's sort of how I prepped for this. So I know Edith Head won a lot of Oscars, so she probably did Black Panther too. So I'm going to say Edith Head.
It's a statistically great guess for the category. And Benjamin.
I only know this just because I was having a conversation about, or not a conversation. I had an argument with a friend about whether Jay-Z was on the Black Panther soundtrack, like whether he was featured in the Kendrick Lamar inspiration album. And that led to a conversation about the name Carter. And the name Carter is stuck in my mind forever. That I do not know the first name, but I'm pretty sure the costume designer for Black Panther is named Carter. It was a big deal when she won.
It is Ruth E. Carter.
Yeah, that's Ruth.
Well done. That's one way to get it. We're 2/3 of the way through the match. So Neal, how is the scoreboard going over on your end?
All right, we have Anne with 1, Ben with 4, and slightly in the lead, David with 6. So still very close.
Very close. All right, question number 11. What commonality was shared by the second Best Actress Oscar speech given by Jane Fonda, the one the Best Actress winner 8 years later gave, and the live-action short film winner Rachel Shenton gave a few years ago?
I'll lock in.
Locked.
All right, Benjamin, you very quickly get to think out loud.
Seem to all be women, so that's a commonality. But if we're talking about something... I don't know. Why don't we? I'll say they talked about gender disparities in Hollywood.
Gender disparity discussion. David.
Ryan, I think I'm picking up on the clue here, and the reason why you don't want to give the middle name is that would give it away. And I'm thinking it was Marlee Matlin, and I'm thinking these speeches were signed.
And Anne.
So that's actually a really interesting answer. I like that you used the question to come to that. I just thought maybe, because I know Jane Fonda is a big activist, I think she does a lot specifically focusing on the environment. So just using the speech as an opportunity to talk about environmentalism.
Well, David did absolutely nail this one. All the speeches were performed in American Sign Language. Jane Fonda did it because she worked a lot with veterans after the Vietnam War. Her film was Coming Home, which was about veterans after the war. So she signed the speech for them. Marlee Matlin signed it because that's Marlee Matlin's primary way of communication. And Rachel Shenton won for a short film called The Silent Child, which is a depressing little movie about a young deaf girl who is stuck in a terrible life. So, all right. Next question, number 12. Which two Bond films are the only two to have won the original song Oscar?
I think I'm locked in.
I'll lock in.
I know one of them was Skyfall, so that one feels easy. Shout out to the ever-talented Mrs. Adele. It's weird to say a Mrs. and then a one-named artist.
You are her tour manager, though, so we'll allow it.
I remember possibly... I know Sam Smith won an Oscar pretty recently because Sam Smith is, I think, the only trans person to win an Oscar. To believe that they're gender nonconforming. So that feels like it could have been maybe a James Bond movie. And given Sam Smith's relative youth, what's the only James Bond movie that came out after Skyfall? Spectre. I'm going Skyfall and Spectre. S's. The two S one word.
All right, and David.
I'm with Ben. I know one is going to be Skyfall, and then the second one, I thought it would be one of the 80s Bond movies. So I think I'm going to say, The Living Daylights.
Living Daylights. Underrated one by Aha.
Sounds like it's wrong.
So I knew right off the bat one of them was Spectre, and I knew that the other song was called Skyfall, but I don't really watch James Bond, so I wasn't convinced that the movie was called Skyfall. But I was like, there is something called the Quantum of Solace that, with Adele around the same time fame. And so I had just landed on Quantum of Solace as being the movie right when you said Skyfall, Ben, and I was like, I have to go what was in my head at that moment because that's cheating otherwise. But again,
I can't believe
an
you did
almost
that
right
to
answer.
yourself, but I admire your honesty. Ben is correct. It is Adele and Paul Epworth for Skyfall, and Writings on the Wall was Sam Smith and the other guy. I think his name was Jimmy.
Maybe I should vamp more.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's just the more words that come out of my mouth.
Nailed it.
The better.
And thank you for being honest too, by the way, because that's such a great
Honestly, that's incredible.
trait
Nobody does
for
that.
trivia playing.
I feel.
Thanks. One time I won a race because I accidentally cut the course, and I was I just cried to the race officials how embarrassed I was.
The guilt overtook you.
Yeah, but then they gave me a huge trophy and a bouquet of flowers and a cake anyway. But I was like, no, I did not
You deserve
win.
Number 13. When Sam Smith accepted his Oscar for Writings on the Wall from Spectre, he said he was proud to be the first openly gay man to win an Oscar, which is hilariously incorrect. Screenwriter Dustin Lance Black, for one, won an Oscar for a film about a gay man and called Smith out online about this. For what film did Black win his award?
Locked in.
I too will lock in.
All right, vamp time. All right, I guess we're all locked in. So, Benjamin, what are you thinking?
I don't know, but in terms of an openly gay, a time when you might have an openly gay writer, as well as specifically an Oscar-winning movie about an openly gay man, I feel like maybe early 90s Philadelphia might be kind of the right time frame and the right movie. Because there were definitely gay writers back in the 50s and 40s who were just not open and probably not writing about gay people. So yeah, I'm gonna lock in and say Philadelphia.
And Anne?
So I was thinking that, first of all, I don't want to overthink anything anymore. The thing that jumped out at me was that this person went after Sam Smith online. So this person is technologically savvy, which means it's probably recent. And so I'm locking in or answering Moonlight.
And David.
Maybe I'm way off on this one. I seem to remember this guy, and I think I remember his speech at the Oscars. I think it's Milk.
One of you will be receiving points. Dustin Lance Black is married to British diving Olympian Tom Daley. The answer is Milk. He won best, I think it would have been original screenplay.
I don't know.
Adapted probably went to Slumdog Millionaire. Because I know Slumdog Millionaire is based on a book, Q&A by Vikas Swarup. So Milk is correct. We're moving into question number 14. The first Academy Awards were held in what venue named after a former United States president?
Okay, so if the first ceremonies were held in 1928, I know all of the presidents who came after that, so I can cross them off the list. So that's nice. But, the Lincoln Theater just seems like in bad taste, so let's pretend that they really appreciate a good fiscal policy, and they went with the Madison.
The Madison. Anne, what are you thinking?
So this is one of those, I studied, I guess, those supermarket clues you guys were talking about at the beginning. And so this one is the Roosevelt Hotel.
And
I was going to say those cards came in handy. I don't know which Roosevelt it was, but it's the Roosevelt Hotel, I think.
It's the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel.
This is before one of them was even president. Ah.
All right, and ending with question number 15. What host was panned for his hosting the 1994 awards with a joke involving Oprah and Uma Thurman that nobody thought made any sense at all?
So I'm guessing that this host was not invited back, which is probably why it doesn't stick out in my head. If I'm just thinking comedians who offend people so my joke answer was going to be Andrew Dice Clay, but maybe I should just play the odds and say Billy Crystal just because of the time period.
Sure, a guess of Billy Crystal. David?
I think this is a guy that everybody had asked to host the Oscars for a long time, and then he did it once and never did it again. I think it's David Letterman.
And Benjamin?
I was going to say David Letterman only because David is about to win, and it was going to be in his honor. So I was 90s comedian David. So I now feel weird. I feel like I'm taking an answer, but I'm going to also go with David Letterman.
Correct answer is David Letterman. And I think the whole point of the joke was, don't these people have unusual first names? Which is not really super funny. And then he called out Keanu Reeves as well. All right, at the end of our match, Neal, Scoremaster Supreme.
Oh, well, thank you. Looks like our final scores are Anne with 2, Ben with 6, and David with 10. So David is our winner for today. We'll be moving on to the final. Ben just short of the wild card score of 8. So unfortunately, we'll not be going to the final. But I do want to say for all of you, those were some pretty tough questions, and I thought you all performed valiantly. Let's start with Anne. Thank you very much for joining us today. And you were right on a lot of them, and I think you just maybe strayed away from your gut a little bit. But any last shout-outs or any predictions for the Oscars, anything like that?
Well, shout out to all of my friends who I have not been able to play trivia with for the last year. So I hope that we all get to play again soon, whether that's in Brooklyn or here in Austin. So I'm excited that kind of stuff is starting to come back. Open air, socially distanced. And so, yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you. And let's go to Ben. You came to us with a very nice looking DSLR camera with some nice composition there, very film friendly for today's podcast. Any last shout outs or people you would like to thank, or your Oscar speech, whatever you'd like to say?
Oh my God, this is so unexpected. I really like to thank my agent who's believed in me forever. It's my cat Rosie, and she loves to bite my face, which is how I know that she cares. I first off want to say yes, thank you for having me on. This was really, really fun. I hope I get to do it again sometime. And I'd also like to shout out my trivia friends, my trivia pals, my trivia team, Cadillac Jones. That's our recurring team name. Can't wait to be with you all again in person, and we can play trivia together. And in the meantime, you get to hear my lovely voice and not see my face made for radio on this podcast, doing pretty okay at some trivia with some other wonderful folks. So
I'd like to dispel that he is very handsome.
I concur, and definitely has hair done by Roy Helen. So thank you very much.
Oh my God, it's beautiful. I would
It's a
kill
callback.
for
I love
any
it.
kind of natural wave in my hair, but I have the most boring straight hair ever. The only compliment I get on my hair is when I go get it done. My person's always like, your hair's so nice and easy to work with. And I'm like, oh, thanks.
Thank you for joining us, Ben. We appreciate it. And our winner today, David, very good job on all of these questions. You either were getting them right in a row or every other one, and it seemed to be right in tune with the question styles. But any last words before you gear up for our final episode next week?
No, I want to thank my fellow nominees, Ben and Ann. They did great. I just happened to get a couple that I knew. And thank you to Ryan. This is from hosting these things. It's really hard to rate these questions. And those were great questions. And he had to write 3 games of these. So I can't imagine that work. But thank you, Ryan.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. And
Yeah, hats off to these and just very well thought out, interesting, multi-layered questions.
I just tried to cover as much ground from as many eras across as many categories as I possibly could.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. We really appreciate you giving us your time today. You're welcome back anytime, and we hope that you enjoy the Oscars this year. Next week is the final, so we have our final set. It's going to be David, Sean, our first episode winner, and our wild card, Amanda, who just squeaked in above Ben to compete for Oscar glory, to win Best Picture, the most coveted award in the Hollywood land, I guess you could say. So thank you very much to everyone for joining us today. And thank you so much to all of our Patreon supporters. We couldn't do these bonus episodes without you. If you'd like to join all of our Patreon supporters, you can go to patreon.com/Triviality Podcast. And for Ben, Ann, David, and Ryan, my name is Neal, and that was Triviality.